I am pleased to be joined by Becky Hammon, fresh off her third WNBA title in 4 years. Are you still celebrating, Becky?
In moments, yes, but I can tell you the offseason overall just feels better coming off a win than a loss. So it's been good.
You took the job in 2022. The Aces were good when you took over, but you're now 9-1 in playoffs, a 900% winning percentage, 3 titles in 4 years, as I mentioned. When you took the job, did you expect to win at this level immediately?
When I took the job, I was working for the Spurs at the time, and I remember having a conversation with Coach Pop just about, having watched them on tape quite a few games. I told him then, I said, I really feel like I can win with this group. So, yeah, I had a good inclination that I'd be able to put in a system and stuff that would make us pretty successful. I didn't know, how many championships or whatever, but the players that I was inheriting, I felt very confident in their skill set, and then giving them a system that I felt like they could really flourish in, and that we could win.
We're clearly in a moment in women's sports, women's basketball, WNBA. We'll get into the CBA negotiations in just a second, but I'm curious, as you're living it and a player in it, how the added enthusiasm is changing your job or your life at all.
I mean, it's been awesome to see the growth of the game. There's been a lot of people, even before this kind of tipping point, I would call it, in women's basketball, that have put a lot of time into to get that cup to where it was pretty full. And then, we have some really exciting players with A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese coming in that kind of just tipped it over the edge. But people have been filling that cup for a long time, investing their time and energy as players, as a league, and just really building the overall product. And I think now, like I said, with this next influx, it's been exciting to see the growth of the game. I think the product is as good as it's ever been, and that's always the best selling point. And when you're in the entertainment business, the product is great. People want to come and watch and be a part of it. Everybody watches women's sports now, right? So just changing that narrative and seeing that growth has been awesome, because it wasn't always there. It wasn't always like that, especially when I was playing.
You mentioned A'ja Wilson, of course. A'ja Wilson, a 4-time MVP now, WNBA MVP. I saw a quote from you a couple weeks ago saying, when it's all said and done, you think she will be the best WNBA player to have ever done it. Let me push you a little further on that. Do you think she's already the best WNBA player to have ever done it?
In my opinion, yes. I mean, I've been around this league for a long time. I played in 1999, was my first year. She is the best, most complete player that I've ever seen. I didn't put that out there right away. I had private conversations with her before saying that publicly, because I'm always hesitant to add to the weight of her crown. Yeah, I do think she's the greatest to ever play. Let's win a few more championships and solidify it, and put it, just from not my opinion, but put it in facts. But I think the numbers are going to be outrageous when she's all said and done, when people look back at what she's done. And, that's always my biggest thing with her is, man, celebrate her right now in the moment while it's live in front of you, because, a career of an athlete goes quick. Your prime years go quick. Life moves quick. And so really, I mean, if you get a chance to watch this woman hoop, you should take advantage of it, because she's one of the most exciting players I've ever seen, male or female.
I think for the general public, when people think about the WNBA, the first player that comes to mind is Caitlin Clark. Some people refer to her as sort of the Tiger Woods figure of the WNBA. The difference there being that I think Tiger Woods was clearly the dominant golfer when people were talking about that, whereas in the league, I think it's pretty clear that A'ja Wilson is the best player in the WNBA right now. Does that lead to sort of an awkward dynamic at all?
I don't think so. I think people want to make more of it than what it is. Let the numbers do the talking, the winning do the talking. Caitlin had a tough year, obviously, with injuries this year. She's going to be a tremendous player in this league. There's no doubt about that. A'ja Wilson is the best player on the planet, and you got the hardware and the numbers and everything to back it up. But Caitlin Clark bringing in the fanfare, I mean, she was one of the most exciting players I've ever seen on a collegiate level. And I would assume, a healthy year for her. She's going to be a great great pro for a long time. So it's exciting for our league. But right now, Asia Wilson is the 6'4" most dominant player in the league by far.
I was looking at some viewership statistics. The WNBA Finals got about an average around 1.5 million viewers per game. That's the second highest since 2003, with the highest being last year's finals. So there's clearly a surge in popularity. Then I looked at the average salary. So, well, let me take a step back. NHL Super Stanley Cup Finals, 2.5 million. So 1.5 million on average. WNBA, 2.5 million NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Salary, average WNBA salary about $100,000. Average NHL salary, $3.5 million. There's even a quote that I pulled from Nafisa Collier. I'll read it to you, which is from this is from 2 years ago, 2023, where she writes, "Don't get me wrong, I'm glad coaches are getting paid, coaches like you. But it's kind of crazy they're making 4 times more than the highest paid players." So all of that as a preamble, which is I know the WNBA is now going through their collective bargaining agreement. What do you think is a reasonable average salary for a WNBA player?
Well, I completely agree with Nafisa that the players should be making more than coaches. There's no doubt about that. The CBA hopefully will bump up their salaries substantially. They deserve it. They've earned it. What those numbers, I can't throw out a specific number. I don't know the numbers, but they're due for a huge increase in salary. And it's got to be, something that is sustainable. And I think that's the biggest thing. You got to remember that this league is still a young league. We're still growing, but we're trending in the right direction. And so the numbers got to follow salary-wise with that as well.
Speaking of Nafisa, she had some pretty pointed comments for Kathy Engelbert, WNBA commissioner. Do you think Kathy Engelbert is the right person for the job?
I've only had a few brief interactions with Kathy. To me, her private conversations that she's had with individual players or lack of the conversations have led to some, rocky relationship status with the players. And the one thing that I think the W has always stood on is when the players speak, people need to sit up and listen. And I think she's sitting up and listening now. I hope she would have done it earlier. I don't know if she can ever kind of retract and get that traction back from those conversations. But I would say they're probably going to look for a change in leadership. I just think it might be too fractured at this point. But we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I'm fairly new to this league. And I don't know the ins and outs of her relationships with players, but I got to tell you, you got to be about the people that you're serving. She's in a position of serving the players of this league, the owners of this league. And, you got to take care of those relationships first and foremost.
I spoke with Carmelo Anthony last week. He predicted that this WNBA CBA negotiations was going to get rocky before it got better. Do you agree with his assessment?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to have to work through some things. I think they just signed in another extension to try to get both sides to come to the table and agree on some numbers. What that looks like, I have no idea. I'm not involved on the league side and I'm not involved on the player side. So I'm kind of curious to see what they come up with as well. I hope they do reach a deal so that there's no lockout. I think right now we're on such a high wave. I wouldn't want there to be a break in the W. That being said, you got to get to a reasonable conclusion where both sides are happy. So I hope they can do that.
What's your role as head coach in this? Like, is there a way to coach your players through a potential lockout?
If they were to lock out, everything's locked out. They can't come into the gym or whatnot. So I'm hoping that's not the case because I need my women's hoops. I love my players. I love being around them. That's a great question. I couldn't sit there and say I'm guiding them on any kind of thing. I mean, they're kind of on their own with their union and going to battle with the league. So I stay out of those conversations. You
mentioned you were an assistant coach under Greg Popovich for the San Antonio Spurs. Can you give me your best Greg Popovich story in terms of how he has impacted your life?
There's so many stories, right? So many dinners, so many great bottles of wine that we've gone through. But I think the greatest piece of information that I would say not was just given, but that I was able to observe is just how he pours into his players, how he cares about his players, how he doesn't skip steps, holds them accountable and holds them to a high level, which is sometimes a hard line to toe as a head coach. But if anything, I learned relationship building with him, and how he navigates, a lot of egos, a lot of, different distractions that you can have on the NBA level. He was just really masterful at that. But the greatest piece of advice I'd say he gave me was just to always be myself. Don't skip steps, do the work, and show up for your players if you want them to show up for you. And he's just a really masterful, I would say, leader, not just a coach in X's and O's wise. He was a really great leader.
I know before you took the job with the Aces, you interviewed with some NBA teams to be what would be the first women's full-time head coach of an NBA team. Greg Popovich made a comment at the time that sometimes you don't get what you want right away. The implication there, of course, is that your end goal here would be to become the first female head coach of an NBA team. Is that, in fact, your end goal?
No, I wouldn't say it's an end goal. I think my goals have kind of evolved over the last few years. I'm super happy with where I'm at. I love coaching. I love being on the women's side. If the men's side comes back around, look, they know where I work. They know how to get a hold of me. But it's not. I don't need the NBA stamp of approval, if you will, or that affirmation from the NBA to tell me I can coach. I know I can coach. And I know I can coach men or women. I know how to coach athletes. So if it happens and it comes around, great. If it doesn't, I'm perfectly happy with where I am and pouring into these women and the women's game in general.
There's been some speculation that the next NBA team may come to Las Vegas. Do you feel like that would be a positive or a negative for the Aces?
I don't think it really affects the Aces either way, honestly. I think it would be great to have an NBA team in Las Vegas. Our seasons don't really run alongside each other, so I don't think there would be too much disruption for us. Look, the more basketball junkies we can get in Vegas, the better. And I know I would love to be going to games there in Vegas. So we'd be excited and embrace an NBA team if they came. I think it would be great for the city, great for basketball fans in general. But I don't look at it as affecting us one way or the other. We're very secure in our fan base and growing the fan base. And I think if you enjoy basketball, you'd enjoy, our team just as much as any NBA team. So I think we'd welcome it. There's no problem there on our end, I don't think.
The speculation is that LeBron James may be a part of that ownership team if and when it happens. Have you talked to LeBron at all about that possibility?
I haven't talked to him. I hear rumblings about him possibly getting a team and moving it to Vegas. I think it would be exciting. I think, Las Vegas is naturally moving into the sports capital of the world. You're going to have all the major sports there within years, I would say. So I think it's exciting. And I think it would be great for the NBA as a whole too. So I think it's a win-win on both sides, both for the fans of Nevada and also the NBA.
Of course, Vegas is known for betting. There is a pretty big sports betting scandal going around in the NBA right now. I'm curious, have you talked to your players about betting on the WNBA and sort of to make sure that they stay away from that?
Yeah, I don't think we see too much of an issue with it on the women's side. I know every year they go through a meeting by either the Players Association or the league that talks about betting and what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. For me, I just stay away from all sports betting, keep it nice and clean. I don't think it affects our league as much as the NBA, although it's growing, but I don't see anything coming out of the W side anytime soon so far as what's going on in the NBA right now.
Becky, appreciate the time and good luck winning championship number 4 next year.
Let's go. Thank you very much for having me.